What could a movie about fire-spewing mutants and a show about beastmen playing baseball have in common? Well, they're both made by Studio Trigger, are a lot of fun to watch, and get a little messy with their metaphors. In 2019, Studio Trigger gave the world Promare, the studio's first feature-length film, and the world responded with love and adoration. Audiences love being introduced to the Burnish, flame-powered people who appeared 30 years ago and have faced discrimination ever since due to fear of their immense power. 2020 saw Trigger follow up this theme with the release of BNA, Brand New Animal, a series about the lives and struggles of an all-beastman city as it fights against worldwide oppression. Both works show some of Trigger's best qualities. We are treated to colorful, vibrant palettes as we go on an action-packed ride with over-the-top characters that are hard not to love. The comedy and writing are solid, and the soundtracks slap. Slapperific. Slapperoni. Slaptastic. Supercalifragilistic. Espislappadocious. Yes! But while I can definitely say I enjoy both of these works, the mishandling of their oppression-based metaphor left a bitter taste in my mouth. Promare is the worst offender of the two in regards to its messiness. When the Burnish first appeared, they were discriminated against and feared, and the world set up tools like segregation to oppress them. Of course, ignoring the voices of the oppressed people and others saying it was not the solution. Jump forward 30 years and the world has adapted to the presence of the Burnish. Fire hydrants are everywhere, special rescue teams are dispatched to deal with Burnish-based fires, and anyone discovered to be a Burnish is arrested and carted away to a maximum security facility, far from the public. Everything's lovely. While many love Promare, I found myself frustrated the first time I watched it. This is not to say that I don't enjoy the movie, the enjoyment just had to be found beneath the frustration. Far, far beneath it. A significant cause is due to the fact it was lauded as this cute, fun ride, and while it is all those things, no one decided to mention it was a movie primarily about state violence and discrimination, and opens with a montage of oppression, riots, and violence. We're shown news clips of proposed Burnish segregation. We see Burnish getting attacked in the streets by crowds of people, including a police officer. The Burnish riot against their oppression, and they are met with resistance from those who fear their flames. And it all feels eerily relevant in light of the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests going on right now. The Burnish are fighting for their right to exist on equal footing in a world that sees them as little more than dangerous and deserving of their persecution. None of that is exactly what I expected when I got on this cute, fun ride. Brand New Animal didn't carry such a sparkling, clean image going in. I was aware there was an allegory for racism, and that made the ride much smoother, though I was wary of any more racism allegories from Netflix after Bright. That was bad. That was bad. Beastmen are hated and discriminated against, to the point of people advocating for the deaths of all beastmen. Luckily, there's Anima City, a place full of nothing but beastmen where they can live free of oppression and discrimination. Well, in theory. BNA's world, and by proxy its discrimination, is much more fleshed out than what is seen in Promare. There's a long history to the beastmen, including ancient cities and even a god and a religion, and beastmen are diverse and multifaceted, filling a multitude of societal roles and having varying personalities, something we did not get to see in Promare with the Burnish. The discrimination against beastmen is just developed, not reducing it to one form of heinous illegality, but rather the results of leaving an oppressed group unprotected. Humans can hunt down beastmen without fear of persecution. Beastmen children are trafficked for reasons I'd rather not think too deeply on, and migrant bird beastmen are shot out of the skies for border violation. As the show goes on, Michiru, a girl who turned into a beastman under mysterious circumstances, discovers several different aspects of beastman discrimination and the effects that it has on them. Spoiler warning, I'm going to be talking about heavy spoilers for both Promare and BNA past this point, so heads up if you haven't seen them yet. One of the aspects Michiru discovers has to be a government conspiracy to eradicate all beastmen. Alan Savasta, head of Savasta Pharmaceuticals, has been pulling the strings for ages. He has been manipulating Beastman with the approval of the Japanese government to make the Beastmen in Anima City go through Neversal syndrome, a reaction to too many Beastmen being gathered in one place, causing them to transform and become incredibly violent. This would cause Anima City to be deemed a failure, Beastmen to appear violent, and Savasta and the government to push a drug that would transform Beastmen into humans, solving the Beastman problem once and for all. It should be noted that these drugs would be delivered through the use of military-grade robots. Well, when they're not in the middle of using live ammunition on everyone in the vicinity. Promare has a similar plot point when we discovered that the Earth is in danger. The molten core will soon overflow, leading to heavy devastation across the planet. Unlike BNA, surely Governor Cray, a powerful government official and billionaire, would choose to work with the many resources at his plan to stave off this disaster and save humans, Burnish, and the planet as a whole. Right? Of course not. He makes a space ark that can only fit 10,000 people that would take him and his giant terraforming robot to a new planet that won't explode. But the real kicker is, to power this spaceship, he uses a warp drive engine that will instantly transport them to this new planet. But a warp drive is going to need a power source. If only there was an energy spewing, no, a fire spewing fuel source nearby that he could use until it burned itself out. Cray uses captured Burnish to power his warp engine through a process that very rapidly kills them. Burnish are seen as a resource and a nuisance and little else. Though they are not even allowed to exist in peace, their very bodies are taken and put to work for a world that does not love them. And luckily, it's easy for Cray to get burnished. Their very existence is deemed illegal. Any burnish discovered or arrested by the Freeze Force are not at all vague parallel for ICE. This is regardless of whether they harm anyone or are actively using their powers, and anyone who knowingly harbors them is arrested as well. After their arrest, they are immediately taken to a maximum security prison that is as cold as it is inhumane. As we enter the cell, we are met with freezing temperatures and banished burnish, all wounded either from their encounters with Freeze Force or from having their limbs frozen whenever they produce the smallest flame. And as two burnish lay dying amongst all these injured people, not a single finger is lifted to provide aid to them. Not that any aid would be expected from the Freeze Force. They don't care about the burnish, they're simply the collectors. To capture the burnish, they can do as they please. The means don't matter. They may beat them down, destroy their homes, they can even crush them underfoot, though that's frowned upon. Not because the Freeze Force shouldn't have the right to kill another human being, but because that would be a waste of precious fuel for Cray. Speaking of Governor Cray, as his plan is on the cusp of failing, it is revealed that he's a burnish, and a powerful one at that. It's already disgusting that the burnish must bear witness to genocide and human experimentation, but for the orchestrator of all of it to be a burnish himself feels like a slap in the face. Brand New Animal does the same thing in revealing that Alan Silvestre is actually a beastman, and a pure-blooded one, spouting hate for the lesser beastmen. While these things don't negate the horrible bigotry perpetuated by humans in their respective works, it's insulting to portray members of these groups as grand orchestrators of their own oppression. One could easily argue that both of these characters could be metaphors for self-hate that is ingrained in oppressed groups after decades of discrimination, but making them the ringleaders obscures the fact that oppressors are the ones with the true power to oppress. Another issue I have is how these works handle resistance to oppression. Promare almost posits the burnish discrimination as if it was their own fault. Their flames are dangerous and they're not using them properly. And of course the actions of mad burnish are seen as wrong. How dare they burn things down after they are attacked and discriminated against? And how dare Leo still try and kill Cray, the orchestrator of his people's genocide? Leo is stopped and his own words are thrown back at him. Burnish don't kill for no reason, he's told by Gallo, even after Gallo has discovered the heinous acts committed against the burnish and the plans laid out by Cray. Is the burnish experimentation not reason enough? Does genocide not fill all the requirements for Gallo, someone who's not directly affected by any of this oppression? It is reminiscent of James Baldwin's response when asked how to get black people to cool it. It's not the black people who have to cool it, because they won't. We're the ones who are dying fastest. BNA adds a justification for its discrimination with Neversal syndrome. Just like the burnish, beastmen are dangerous down to a biological level, and in a way that makes them a danger to everyone around, including themselves. And just like with Leo, when it's discovered that Silvestre is developing a drug that could wipe beastmen from existence, Shiro is stopped and treated as if his rage is wrong and unwarranted. Michiru, someone who has been a beastman for less than a year and learns a new facet of the culture every time the sun rises, can neither see what's wrong with a seemingly human man making a drug that could eradicate beastmen across the globe, nor can she fully grasp why Shiro's rage is valid. Both works continue a long tradition of telling oppressed people what qualifies as good rebellion and how they should act against oppression through the mouths of people who actively uphold the systems that oppress them. I should also add that as a black person, hearing thoughts on resistance from a character who has been suddenly transformed into a beastman is more than a little weird when I live in a world of Rachel Dolezal's, Sean King's, and blackfishing. However, when it's all said and done, BNA does not go down the route of eradication. The evil plan is stopped and Neversal syndrome is treated without changing beastmen to humans. Beastmen are still beastmen, including Michiru, who decides to continue her beastman form. And the city decides to open up, realizing that beastmen being cooped up in the city does not actually address the problems at hand and leads to more issues. The ideas here aren't necessarily revolutionary, but they're more of a step in the right direction. But how much longer until significant societal change comes? Are we doomed to an infinity of baby steps that do not actually solve the problem or directly respond to the outcry? On the other hand, Promare's attempt to wrap everything in a bow reveals its lack of revolutionary imagination. No, its solution is to completely erase the identity of the burnish. Undercutting the entire idea that discrimination against the burnish is bad, it simply takes away the reason for the discrimination. There's no eradication of discriminatory practices or destruction of ghettos. We see nothing indicating that Cray will be held responsible for his crimes against humanity. Promare's solution to oppression is for the oppressed to homogenize. I love to see marginalized people with superpowers as stories of freedom and not stories of erasure, so the eugenics in Promare's final moments don't sit right on my spirit. Both Promare and BNA use the struggles of real-life people as a staging ground for a show on discrimination, and even in the midst of all this fantasy and fiction, they continue to give piecemeal attempts at positive change that lead to nothing, and in Promare's case, completely eradicate the oppressed identity. There are no worthwhile solutions to be found here. Only half answers and eradication. Promare's the worst of... Promare's the worst. Fuck Promare. Jesus Christ, fuck Promare.
Always talking shit about Promare. All you do is talk shit about Promare.
It deserves it.
You talk 10 minutes about Promare.
Am I wrong though?